right, Rip City. We are back at the Rip City Roundtable podcast. I'm at the Roundtable. I'm not by myself this time, though. I have a guest, the Steve Dewald. He covers everything NBA draft for the Blazers. He's been writing profiles for the last few months. He's been guiding us to this day. And now let's see what he has to say. And I rhymed there. I didn't mean to do that. We're so pumped for this episode. I know, Blazer fans, the season was rough. And we were just trying to get to this draft. So now we're at the draft. Let's recap it. Honestly, I think we did pretty well. I think the Blazers come out of this smelling a little bit like roses there. The draft class wasn't, highly touted. There's no Victor Wembanyama here. But for the moves that Portland had in front of them to make, I think they did the best they could. Lemonade from lemons. I don't know. All the metaphors you want, you can use here in a positive way. But we're just excited. I'm glad it's wrapped up. We're recording this as the second round is finishing. So Steve gives his insights on what we did in the second round, or maybe what we didn't. But it might have been a positive thing. So we like that. So anyway, don't go anywhere. We're going to take a very quick break, and then we'll be right back with Steve Dewald on the Rip City Roundtable podcast. All right, we are back from break. We're here with the Steve Dewald. He said no to ESPN, NBC, CBS, all his appearances requests, but he's here with the Rip City Roundtable podcast. Steve, how are you doing, man? You made it through day one and day two of the draft.
No place I'd rather be than on this podcast. So I'm happy we finally made it work. I do have a bone to pick with my actual 9-to-5 job of scheduling like a crazy work week and me having to make multiple flights all week and try to follow this. Yeah. But I couldn't be happier. Like I really not to jump too far into this yet.
No, get us in there, man. Let's talk through it.
I really felt the likelihood, and you could tell by my previous appearances, the likelihood that I was going to be happy with anything that happened in this draft was pretty low. I had extremely low expectations. Sitting here today as the second round closes, I couldn't be happier with what the Blazers did in the last 2 days. I think they addressed a position of need. They got a player that has proven skills that should translate, and Donovan Clingan. And they got maybe the best contract in the NBA in Deni Avdija. And so
let's
excited.
Let's dive into the trade, because that happened and correct me if I'm wrong, it was like an hour before the draft started or something like that?
Yeah, it was an hour or two before the draft.
Okay, so then what did you see first? Did you see Blazers make a trade? Did you see Malcolm Brogdon is traded? Did you see what was the first part of that? And then give me your initial thoughts on it.
So I have been a Deni Avdija guy since before he entered the NBA. So I had friends messaging me about the trade. That was where I went. I saw it was Deni first, and then backtrack from there.
Okay.
Always been an advocate for his game. Now, granted, he's a little different player than I thought he was going to be coming into the league, but he's starting to show a lot of the things that I thought he was going to do.
Okay.
As a lottery pick.
Give us a little background on him, because to be honest, I know the name, not tracking much Wizards basketball, but I knew the name. Some Bill Simmons, some of these other big outlets, have talked about him in the season he had this year. Tell us as Blazers fans, give us some insight on him as a player. What maybe he was as a prospect, and now what he's turned into.
So coming into the league extremely young, and just to kind of put this in context, he's been in the league for multiple years now. He's younger than Chris Murray, who was a first-round pick by the Blazers last year. Wow. So just to put it in context of when he was coming into the league, was a super young player playing in a very competitive, the Israeli league, quality play. They play in EuroLeague. Just looked like a really competent two-way player. Plays offense, defense, plays hard, but also there was a lot of potential. His ceiling was really tied to his potential of becoming a facilitator at the next level, almost the same billing as a watered down Luka. He hasn't quite been that, but last year we're talking about setting career bests in assist rates. His usage goes up in those categories, while his turnovers don't jump way up. So he's adjusted to that output. His 3-point shooting was great last year comparatively to where he's been. I still want to see him do it another year to make sure it's not an outlier year. So he went from around 30%, actually below 30% last year or 2 years ago. Last year at 37%. So it'd be nice if that sticks right in that 37 to 40 range. But really, the thing here is he is still extremely young, 23 years old, younger than a couple players that got drafted in the last 2 days. And just really, there's team-friendly contracts, and then there's like further down the spectrum what this contract is for Denny. And really a descending contract where in the final year you're at $11-12 million, and this cap is going to go up and up and up. You're talking about someone who is going into his prime at that point and is going to be on a very cap-friendly deal. Now that might complicate things if he wants to stay in Portland beyond that.
Sure.
Because that you get into that weird situation with his bird rights. But if they decide to move off him and he's playing well, he's going to be a very valuable trade piece. And by then, hopefully, you know what type of players you want to target. Hopefully, you know what Scoot is, what Shaden is, and then hopefully, we get something really awesome in the 2025 draft.
No kidding, man. That's great. I mean, it's like how often, like you said, you got a guy that's been in the NBA like 3 or 4 seasons, right? But he's younger than some of these draft picks we had this year. Like, they were rookies. Like, that's unheard of. And then the descending contract. I know you probably don't know off the top of your head, but it's like, how many of those are in the NBA? It's like they always go up. This one's going down? That's crazy.
Yeah, you think back to what type of flexibility, and granted, the end of his tenure in Portland kind of soured his overall standing, but Al-Farouq Aminu was on a similar deal too, where it was flat and or descending.
Yeah.
And that really afforded the Blazers to make some moves. Granted, they might not have spent money in the best ways, but we don't need to go back to that summer. But it does
Come on, Steve.
It does
don't
afford
do that to us.
It does afford the Blazers a lot of flexibility here. And yes, I know there is pushback on some sticker shock of what the Blazers gave up, but I was never fully convinced that Malcolm Brogdon was this really valuable trade piece. I thought the Blazers were going to have to hold on to him until the deadline. And then you run a whole risk of injury and what could happen there. But I just don't think there was teams lining up to give a first-round pick out saying, hey, we're a Malcolm Brogdon away from contention in the summer. He's more of someone you add later on to augment your roster. So I'm totally fine with the trade package. And really, it's 2 things. They don't commit any more money than they have to lottery picks in this draft. You know how I feel about this draft class.
Yes.
And then also getting one of the best contracts in the NBA and still getting a 23-year-old player in the process that finished 6th in most improved player of the year voting last year. Really has come into his own. And I think he is someone who's on the ascension. And really the Blazers have size and multiple positions now. This is a polar opposite roster construction of what we were looking at 4 years ago.
Sure. If we had to get, and I know, I think you and I are both on as many people are like let's just tank one more year. Let's do that. Yeah. But I have to ask you if what is your ideal starting lineup here with Advia? Like, do you have your guards? You have this guy now that is like a stretch 4. Is he the starting power forward on the Blazers? What would it look like?
So Denny's mainly played small forward in his career. He did last year his closest split of 50-50 between small forward and power forward. It's about 60-40. Okay. But I think he is a small forward at the next level. I really do think the Blazers probably have 1 or 2 more veterans they'll probably trade this summer. It just feels that way. I would say my ideal starting lineup would be one that has Denny in it, mainly because you want to see what he does next to the people you're building around.
Sure.
Also, I think he covers up a lot of defensive deficiencies. And then also I think he takes pressure off of Scoot Henderson as a facilitator. You're talking about a player who averaged around 4 assists last year. That can make everybody's life easier when he's on the floor.
Yeah.
But if this team, I have reservations about them trying to win this season, but if they were really trying to win a game,
yeah,
I would say having Jeremy Grant and Denny Avdia in the starting lineup is really interesting. Like that looks like a competitive team if you have the right star around it. Because those are guys that can switch onto multiple positions, and they can get their own shot on offense or create a shot for someone else.
Yeah.
So really interesting pairing there.
Yeah.
We'll see if Jeremy Grant is around long enough for it to make sense.
Sure. I know. I was like, I'm like seeing this starting lineup, and it's like now you have the Scoot, Shaden, Sharp, however you want to move the pieces. Then you have Advia, you have Grant, Ayton, and then you have this bench of like Tumani and Walker. Maybe if Robert's healthy, you got Clingan, and then you have one of those three guards now coming off the bench. I mean, I'm not getting excited. We need to tank one more year, but Steve, it looks good.
You could talk yourself into this team if it getting healthy, staying healthy, not shutting anyone down, and being a team that could compete ahead of schedule. And when I say compete ahead of schedule, this could be a team that could be vying for a play-in spot, because their learning curve for Scoot Henderson is still pretty steep. Donovan Clingan, I think, he's got stuff that's going to translate to the NBA. But the learning curve is there for those bigs. Like they are big guys like that are typically foul magnets.
Yes.
When they come into the league. So I don't have huge expectations for production out of him. But if everybody, like the center rotation for the Blazers, I said in my article last night, I think you could put their center rotation up against any center rotation in the league, and I think they probably have the deepest with Duop Reith, with Time Lord, with Clingan now, and then Ayton starting.
Yeah, it's versatile. It's like that you got any piece you want, whatever style of basketball you want to play, you have a center that can go out there and hang with them. So let's move into that. That's a great transition point there, Steve. It's like you're professional podcaster or something. So Clingan just keeps dropping, right? First pick, second pick, third pick. What is your mindset at like let's say the fourth pick? What was it? Reed? No, it was a Castle. And then you get the fifth. When did you start thinking, oh man, we might get Clingan here at the seventh pick?
When it got to 6 is when I was like, no matter what, they're going to get Clingan or Cody Williams.
Yeah.
2 players I was very okay with the Blazers getting. Yeah. I really thought just the buzz coming into the draft that I thought the Grizzlies were going to get ahead of the Blazers in the process to go get Clingan.
Yeah.
And there was a little bit of a scare when the Hornets got there, and it sounded like they were fielding phone calls. But I think when it got past Houston, that was the one I was wondering if would Houston trade out, or would Houston just take Donovan Clingan? I think when it got past Houston, that's when I was like, there's a real possibility that the Blazers can just stand pat at number 7 and get a player that I think it became pretty clear that they were going to take a center. I think that's we heard a lot about Zach Edey. We heard a lot about Donovan Clingan, and I think it was very clear they were going to take a big man there. And it was awesome that they didn't have to give up anything else to move up to take him.
Yeah. No, I think that was big. I know Memphis lurking there, and then ends up getting like Zach Edey, who, I know we were looking at, and I think some people think, oh, was that a reach or not? But, that's what they were looking for. I'm still hoping, I don't know what pieces we would even get. And I know a healthy Rob Williams, I'll take it. But I just have to assume he's not going to be healthy. And I was like, well, Memphis would be a decent trade partner there, but anyway, I was glad we got Donovan. I think that's a guy, again, in a draft that's kind of all over the place. Who knows where these players are going to land, in the next 2 or 3 years, or what their progress will be. But I mean, that's a guy that's a winner. He's huge. It seems like he has good touch, and he can anchor the defense. So it's like, I don't know, man. I feel like we did well. And just even responses too. I know reading Twitter and other outlets. I mean, I feel like it's overall pretty positive. A lot of, not that it matters, Steve, but it's like, that is kind of nice. It's validation somewhat.
Yeah, I mean, I will always say there's always a segment of the Blazer fan base that loves to be miserable. So like, there's always going to be those people,
Yeah.
where the sky's falling. But I think overall, I think both moves the Blazers made yesterday or on the day one of the draft were received positively and rightfully so. I mean, for Clingan, like I've mentioned earlier, is he has skills that absolutely translate to the NBA. Rebounding translates, shot blocking in the way that he does it translates. Now, yes, there's questions about his game. I'm still curious if he can thrive outside of drop coverage in the NBA. I don't know if he's a guy who can step out. There's some pundits who think he can.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that film enough from my research, but there's a lot to like there. And I think in a draft class where there's a lot of players that I couldn't point to one skill yet that says, hey, this person's going to be able to do this in the NBA. You know, really a lot of the upside for a lot of these players, even early in this draft, was purely theoretical. Like there's nothing theoretical about Donovan Clingan's size, his rebounding, or his shot blocking. I mean, it's there.
For sure. Yeah. Wingspan is not theoretical. We can measure that. So I think if he can survive in space in a pick and roll defense, I think that he's golden. Like, you know, he can play make a little bit too and those things, but that will be the test. If he is just getting abused in pick and rolls over and over again. And as a rookie, it's going to happen. But yeah,
he's going to get tested. But also too, I think understated here is, I've mentioned it a couple times, but he is a point guard's best friend. I mean, he is a big time role guy, great hands. I still quite haven't figured out how his soft hands don't translate to better shooting, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But he, you know, like you said, he's a good passer, can control the ball in traffic. Like he is going to be a huge asset for Scoot in pick and roll situations. Like both those guys getting downhill. That's a lot of athleticism, a lot of big time finishing above the rim for both of those players. Like it should be fun to watch.
100%. Yeah, it will be fun to watch. Were you okay with us trading, you know, part of the deal with Brogdon was trading the 14th pick? I know, you know, as we're leading up to the draft and it's always like, hey, who we take at 7 and who we take at 14 and 7 and 14. Were you okay with us not? I know you were like, we got to dump the salaries, but were you genuinely okay with that?
No, I mean, jumping the salary and the veterans thing, I knew that was going to get worked out, whether it was this summer or if it's going to be at the deadline. And I still think there's moves to make there. My big concern was I did not want to live in a world. I did not want them to take both those players. I did not want them to commit cap to this class. I think it was. I think they executed it perfectly. I mean, as the second round comes to an end, they didn't use any of the second round picks. They picked up 3 first rounders and some cash, which I don't care about cash, but you know, 3 additional first rounders later years from the Knicks. Only took 1 player from this class, which I think is perfect. I wanted as little exposure to this draft class as possible, and the Blazers executed it perfectly. And the player they did come away with, again, beating the drum, proven skills, proven winner, a safe bet at a position of need for them.
Yeah. You know, as we're recording, like you said, they're wrapping up the second round now. Were you bummed we didn't draft Bronny James? Are you bummed, Steve?
I'm so happy it's just going to be over. Like it's awkward. And like, I get it. Like he is LeBron James' son, and there was a time where he had a little bit more of a prospect profile. But like I'm just ready for it to kind of disappear from the conversation. So I am happy it's over. I was interested to see if there was going to be a team that would draft him and kind of hold him hostage, but it just didn't happen.
I was rooting for it. I just was hoping, come on, just one team, let's do it. You know. Because I'm sure Rob Pelinka was just giving calls every round, being like, if you do this, you or else kind of thing.
Yeah, Rich Paul as well. I mean, I think the fellas at Clutch did not want to make this awkward. No. And they were prepared to make other teams' lives awkward if they did take him.
No kidding. Do you think, and I don't want to spend too much time on it, but like, let's say, you know, they'll play Bronny in game 1 and it'll be nationally televised and they'll make a big stink of it. Do you think eventually though it's just like he'll just be on the G League affiliate for the Lakers? That's kind of where Bronny will live for probably a year or so.
I don't know. I mean, I think that probably depends on where LeBron thinks about what he thinks about the situation.
Yeah.
He wanted to play with his son. I don't know if his idea of playing with his son just means they're on the team together and he's in the South Bay Lakers the whole time.
Yeah.
But I think there is a huge opportunity for Bronny to develop in the G League, and I also think there is a revenue stream there for the entire G League if he's there. So I would expect him to see some time there, but I think I think LeBron's going to probably exercise some of his power here and make sure he's on the roster with him.
I fully agree. I think that's going to happen. Yeah, but I mean, Hand Fruit Nation when the South Bay Lakers come to Rip City remix, man, it's going to be wild in there. So okay, Steve. So you have to give a grade right now, and you have to tell me why you gave that grade. So, but you have to include not just like, okay, we drafted Clingan at 7, that's great, but you got to include the trade. You got to include getting out of the second round picks, all of it put together. What's the grade, Steve, and why?
So last night, after day 1, was a B+ for me, and I just felt like you can't give an A to anybody in this draft class. So they did everything right.
Yeah.
I think by not taking any more players in the second round, I think it's enough for me to like push it to an A-.
Oh, we got an A-.
So okay. I think getting Donovan Clingan, I think is a palatable prospect for me in this class. I think acquiring Denny at his contract is a masterclass. Like, I don't think people really understand how valuable that's going to be, whether it's him being valuable as a player for the Blazers or being extremely valuable as a trade piece later. So just excellent move there. And then not backing yourself into a second round pick when you're already facing a roster crunch. I would imagine they'll probably be active with 2-way contracts and inviting people to the G League and to their summer league team. So I think the next hour or two is probably going to be pretty busy.
Okay.
But I was really impressed with what they did in the last couple of days. And again, I don't know if it's because my expectations were so low, but I did not expect to come away from this process happy with how things went. So I am happy at A-.
Yeah. Well, I think Joe Cronin, the general manager, kind of this attribute of patience has been interesting by him in a good way, because you wait out the Lillard the saga of last summer, and then you get into this and having the 7th pick, you kind of probably could have gotten a little gun shy or jumpy maybe, and then someone's going to jump ahead of us. What do we do? And then just really like standing pat, and then the player you probably were targeting the whole time falls to you anyway. So I think do you think Joe Cronin, like, have these been just kind of I don't want to say lucky swings, but I mean, do you think this guy really has the chops? Like, does he have a blueprint for this, or should Portland fans, Rip City fans, be like thrilled that he's the general manager?
We'll see. I'm open-ended on this. So I think he's doing the right things, but I want to see, one, what the coaching staff looks like going forward, and then 2, for me, beating that drum again is the most important thing this team can do for its rebuild, is to get one of the 3 to 6 players in the 2025 draft, get one of those guys that can absolutely has the upside to change the face of your franchise.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping if he's playing the patient game and has foresight here, hopefully that is the plan for the organization. But my nightmare is that they try to cobble together something to make an 8 seed this year, and then they don't get a top 5 pick this next year. But I think Joe Cronin has done a good job of calming, like you mentioned, just kind of shutting out that noise and continue to make the moves he believes in.
Yeah.
And we'll see what that looks like the rest of the summer. But I think overall, I think the organization itself has some changes it needs to make, whether it's the coaching staff, whether it's ownership, and what that will look like. But I think Joe Cronin's made a decent case that he can handle captaining the ship in stormy waters.
Okay. I'll leave you with this. I want your take. Odds. What do you think the odds are that the Blazers win the Summer League championship, Steve? Okay, we got Scoot, Clingan, Chris Murray's on the team, probably Ryan, Rupert, probably Tumani. I doubt Jabari. Maybe Jabari. I don't like. That's a squad, Steve, for a Summer League title, which is, Portland. We've done this before. So what do you think? You think good odds or bad odds?
I would be shocked if Scoot plays a lot in Summer League. And really, it's about guards in Summer League. It's about having that primary scorer there, because it's a lot of line drives to the basket and some ugly basketball in Summer League. I love it, but it's ugly.
Sure.
I think obviously I think they have a chance just because they've selected so high in the drafts recently. So those teams usually are fairly competitive, but there's going to be some teams here that are going to make some noise too. I think the Timberwolves, by getting Dillingham, I think they're going to be tough. I think Reed Shepherd's going to have a great Summer League. There's going to be some teams that are going to be really tough, and with those guards that can kind of do it all themselves, those guys typically are the ones who really make noise in Summer League.
Okay. All right. You heard it here. Yeah. And I think, if Scoot's not playing, then I take it back. We probably don't have a good chance. Yeah. So I'm with you. They probably hold it. He played one Summer League game last time? Or two?
Well, he got hurt 14, 15 minutes into the first game. So.
So probably shutting him down. Okay. Yeah. Well, Steve, so again, our listeners, we can catch you riding on Blazers Edge. You great profiles leading up to the draft. That was amazing. So you want to go know what Steve thought about Clingan, go back and look. He did a profile on him. And then we get to check out your coverage. Do you have anything like wrapping up the second round you got coming out?
I'll probably see just who they bring in and who they sign to kind of these contracts in Summer League invites and see what that looks like. See if it warrants something like that. I would like to. I'm traveling to go watch Team USA play the final game in the Copa America, so that's going to cut into kind of my timing on what I want to write here. Yeah, but I would like to just introduce the 2025 draft class through Blazers Edge. Usually, that's after the dust settles, there's those way too early mock drafts that come out, and that's always kind of one of my favorite things. And I think this year is going to be off the charts interest in the draft.
Oh, huge, man. I can't wait for that to drop. When you drop that, we'll definitely promote it. I want to know. I want to know what your thoughts are.
Perfect. Cool. That's my goal. That's kind of the one that's really I've been thinking about for a month and a half of. That's kind of the direction I want to go. Yeah, cool. Well, Steve, we appreciate the time. Go root on Team USA. Let's get it done. And we appreciate all the draft coverage, and we get excited. We'll get excited for 2025. Here we go. Thanks, Corey. Right. No problem, Steve. See ya.
We are Rogue Media Sports.